The sound of Sandhill Cranes heralds spring for the San Luis Valley. Their calls rise above the valley floor and beckon water down from the mountains to fill the rivers and wetlands as they migrate through this high mountain desert. Sandhill Cranes have been stopping here for thousands of years, but they share their history and their water with local communities.
This place has been a center of irrigated agriculture for 150 years. Our culture, our community, our economies are all centered around irrigated agriculture.
Families all across the valley have a rich history on the land.
It's been 130 years that the Higels have been on this original homestead here.
So I was 3 years old when we moved in this house where I live now.
And then now me and my brother have been taking it over.
And I'm the fourth generation of my family to live and work here in agriculture. And I have a 28-year-old son that wants to be the fifth generation.
Farming's in our blood.
But the lifeblood of this valley, water, is hard to come by. In a typical year, the San Luis Valley only gets 7 inches of rain. So farmers depend on deep winter snowpacks in the mountains and heavy summer rains in the foothills to fill up the rivers and replenish underground aquifers to irrigate their fields and pastures.
Alluvial aquifer is water that moves up and down, typically like what you'd see if you had a glass of water with ice. You could watch it go up and down. If you drank it down, you'd fill it back up with a pitcher, and we've slowly drank it down, but the waiter hasn't come around with the pitcher to fill up the glass yet.
Areas that were once natural wetlands and meadows now need water brought to them.
Back in the day, they didn't have to irrigate like we did. In my lifetime, I've went from not irrigating the meadow, the grass, the swamps, to now we're figuring out ways to run water to it. That was inconceivable when my grandpa's and his family was still around here. So.
Now, even when this basin is struggling to meet all of its own water needs, growing cities throughout Colorado are eyeing the San Luis Valley to quench their thirst.
The place is perceived at times as being this panacea, this wealth of water available for the taking. So about every decade since the 1970s, we deal with these proposals to tap into this panacea. So as of about a year and a half ago, there's a group promoting yet another water export proposal where they would like to pump 22,000 acre feet of water out of the confined aquifer system, then deliver it in a pipeline to constituents, in the South Metro Denver Front Range area.
This is an over-appropriated system in this valley anyway, so there's more water spoken for than there is available. And if you throw an export scheme to a big city out the side, it's just another out. There's no in coming back in. There's no benefit to the valley when it leaves it like that.
The fact of the matter is we don't have an abundant supply of renewable water.
The San Luis Valley was once dominated by the mighty Rio Grande River. Snaking through the valley, life would ebb and flow on the edges of her floodplain. It was this water that first brought the cranes here over 2,000 years ago. The boom in agriculture in the valley amplified the ecosystems for the cranes. Fields are flooded yearly to grow hay, mimicking natural wetlands. And when wheat and barley came to the valley in the 1900s, it provided a high-calorie food resource that buoyed crane populations that were dwindling due to hunting and habitat loss.
When we're farming, our primary goal is to raise crops for profit. The secondary benefit would be that the wildlife get to utilize our crops, but we don't mind helping feeding them.
As the San Luis Valley begins to face more water issues, barley is getting harder and harder to grow. From the price of water to the price at the market, farmers are reevaluating the benefits of growing this crop that cranes rely on.
I take care of the barley, and then I help my brother with the potatoes as well, planting, spraying, all that stuff. As we're getting into the future, the water is getting to be more of like a scarce resource. Prices keep going up and stuff, and so a lot more farmers are kind of shying away from the barley. For the cranes, I could see that if once everybody steps away from it, it's going to be harder for them to find their food. I'd hate to see that them disappear because there's no food here. I believe now that we're strong, but what can you do when something's not paying as well? You got to survive somehow.
But the communities in the San Luis Valley aren't giving up. They know the value of their water, and they are digging their hills into the ground to keep it here.
If you come and want to take 22,000 acre feet of water out of the basin, you're going to have to dry up that 10,000 to 15,000 acres, supporting agriculture and wildlife and ecosystems, and trade that for that 22,000 acre feet of water that wants to be shipped out of here.
They are not only fighting to keep water in the valley, but they are also working to utilize every drop.
For the future of our farm, I would like to pass it on to my kids. But my hope with everything that's going on that we're able to survive it and keep it going.
You know, I contemplate this often about what are we doing now really to set ourselves up in the future, and again to afford us the same opportunity that, you know, my great-grandfather had when he came here.
That's the thing we've got to look for, is creating a balance between farming and that community as well as conservation. And that's all we want. Any farmer, I think.
The question if the cranes will survive, you know, will they be here 100 years from now? That's dependent on, does agriculture survive here?
This is a small place, and when we need help, we need to have allies. And wildlife crane festival people are great allies. They understand that we need our water, and if the water's taken out of here, the cranes go away, wildlife goes away, people go away.
Farmers and ranchers are standing on the front lines of this fight. And if they succeed, it will not be a selfish victory. The future that they imagine is bright for people and wildlife alike. It will be a victory for their communities. It will be a victory for the environment. And it will be a victory for the Sandhill Cranes.